So I think if we start sort of in the weight room, I think um, in terms of RPE, what's interesting is if you look at the if you believe that during a given set, the RPE is probably more going to be reflective of like how close you were to task failure. So like if I could perform 10 reps with a weight and I did seven, I'm probably going to give you a 7 out of 10. It's the inverse of repetitions in reserve, which I think is a brilliant prescriptive tool in terms of if we want to try and set like a bar weight or a tonnage, whatever. Like, okay, I want you to do 6 repetitions, but you should feel like you've got 2 reps left in the tank by the end. And I think the closer you get to task failure or proximity to task failure, athletes, especially those who are resistance trained and accustomed to it, they intuitively know and understand that. Um, if I'm in the weight room and I'm actually doing sort of high intensity circuits, so I'm using this as a bit of like an off feet conditioning stimulus. Again, I work in rugby and we do this all the time because some of our athletes are like 120 kilo. They have clear goals to maintain body composition or try and sort of keep body fat low, but we can't overrun these guys because backs just go and everything like that. So we'll do a lot of like, intervals with medicine balls and ski ergs and rowers. And how do you prescribe between all these different bits of kit and stuff? But if I say, look, it should always feel very hard. How many med ball slams do I need to do in 30 seconds? It should feel very hard. If it feels easier, you need to go harder. If it feels extremely hard, you need to back off a little bit. So there's kind of like two different examples of how you could use RPE or definitely this kind of perceptual auto-regulation, like within the weight room. I think then if you're coming out and if you come out onto the field and we look at it in terms of endurance training, again, we've got a couple of things. We've got this idea that we can produce RPE or we can produce exercise from RPE, this like production mode, and that's training prescription. So that's going to be really good. Maybe if we're kind of on longer runs or towards the latter set of tempos or intervals. Whereas actually, if we know that the goal is for it to for it to feel a certain intensity, for it to be moderate, or for it to be hard, or be very hard, or extremely hard, and maybe he's understanding actually in the first instance where does it need to be. We could then regulate performance, i.e., running speed, based on deviations from that expected perception. So, like, if I want my tempo runs to actually be a clear amalgamation and accumulation of fatigue under the belt, then by definition, if I do like 4 or 5 sets, then sets 4 and 5 should feel harder than 1 and 2. But actually, if I just want to hit that constant sort of plateaued stimulus, then if anything needs to change, it has to be my running speed based off my perception. I think if you go like kind of more continuous, it's easier to have this conscious awareness of your perception of effort. And again, that's going to drift up over time. So do you use that as a regulator for pace and for speed as well? And then we can have a look at like how can we use it to actually monitor exercise. So we've already mentioned it as a bit of a testing or a diagnostic tool to look at maybe the speed we could produce for a fixed level of effort, or for a fixed heart rate, what is the corresponding level of effort? So like if I run and I run to the point where my heart rate is 80% and I try and hold that for 4 minutes, and that normally feels a certain level, and I know what that is. Deviations from that might be indicative of fatigue, for example. And we could also bring in this idea of running speed there, run at a fixed speed. If heart rate drops and RPE goes up, that might be a negative training effect. It could be fatigue or something else. If I'm running at the same speed for 4 minutes and my heart rate drops and my RPE drops, then actually that's maybe indicative of a more chronic positive training effect, like a fitness effect. So it's using this sort of triangulation and differences between the two.